How's it going, everyone? It's your favorite apostates. I'm McKay.
I'm Jordan.
And we're back, and we're finally making good on our promise after like a couple weeks of putting it off because of other more pressing stuff. But we're here. We're buckling down. We're finally doing it. We're bringing a fall vibe today. I know it's August, but here in Colorado, it was like down to high of low 70s. So
It's true.
We're just going on with the fall vibes and long sleeves and hats and stuff. So sorry if that wasn't your experience. We're just going to roll with it.
What we have in store for you today is a long-awaited, highly requested, like once we mentioned this, I get DMs about it all the time, especially with what's been happening recently.
So thank you for your patience.
Yes, so thank you. But what we're going to be doing today is the long-awaited video about MyKayla Skinner, former U.S. women's gymnastics Olympian silver medalist MyKayla Skinner. And she is Mormon. And so that is, if you've landed here, you've fallen into our Mormon influencer verse, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
We've covered lots of Mormon influencers, and MyKayla is now one of them. So today we're going to be covering, this will be a little bit different than Mormon influencer videos that we've done in the past because there's a bit more controversy of late to cover. But we wanted to give you a decent picture into like just general information about MyKayla if you're not familiar with who she is, and their podcast that she did with her husband for a little while, and then essentially the controversies that make her a topic amongst people on the internet. And so if you don't know who we're talking about, if you have no idea who MyKayla is, or you know nothing about gymnastics, or you have no idea what the hell is going on, that's okay. You are welcome here. We will get you caught up. If you are a gymnastics expert, like all the people that I see in the r/gymnastics people out there, I cannot speak to her technique because I am not, nor ever was I, a gymnast. And so that's not something that we're going to be able to speak on a whole lot because I don't know a whole lot about gymnastics technique. But if you do, and you'd like to highlight that in the comments just for everybody else's mutual beneficial experience, please do.
Just a little moment of honesty before we get going here. Every single time without fail that somebody mentioned MyKayla Skinner before we embarked on this little journey of ours, I thought they were talking about McKayla Maroney.
Yes, let us be
I was
clear.
Like, she was Mormon? That's crazy.
Let us be clear. We'll throw up a photo here. Classic MyKayla Maroney, who is also an Olympian and an overall amazing athlete.
And also enshrined for time immemorial as an Advice Animals meme. If you were around, you'll know.
Yes. That is not who we're talking about. We are talking about MyKayla Skinner. You will see her face throughout. Yeah. So we are not talking about MyKayla Maroney. Nothing but love and respect and admiration to MyKayla
no
Maroney.
Shade. MyKayla Brooke Skinner, now MyKayla Brooke Harmer, was born to Chris and Kim Skinner on December 9th, 1996, which is kind of a first for Mormon influencers because we never work with somebody. She's between Jordan and me. Which we almost never are talking about people who are our age. They're usually at least 10 years older. Anyway,
so this is new.
It's new territory. She was born in Gilbert, Arizona, where she grew up, and she has three older siblings, and she is a lifelong and current Mormon or member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. MyKayla took up gymnastics in 2000, as did most of her siblings, and began a lifelong career of competing, culminating in becoming an Olympic alternative in the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio and winning a silver medal for vault in the 2020 or 2021 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. This win was a controversial one for many gymnastics fans, as MyKayla only was allowed to compete due to Simone Biles taking herself out of the competition for mental health reasons. We'll come back to that more later, so don't worry if you are wanting to hear more about that. During her tenure at the University of Utah, she won multiple medals and was heralded by her coach as the best in the world. She met her future husband in 2017 while she was attending the University of Utah, technically on the Mormon dating app Mutual, or so they have
which we have covered
said.
on the channel before.
Yeah.
If you're curious.
Oh, yeah. Check that out right there.
If I remember to link it.
I'll remember to link it, don't worry. In October 2019, she announced that she was engaged to Jonas Harmer and was married the following month. She graduated from the University of Utah in 2023 with a degree in communications with an emphasis in sports broadcasting.
Let's talk about Jonas, MyKayla's current husband, so that you can be up on the two of them before we jump into the podcast that they went on to start together. So Jonas was born in 1997 and grew up in San Ramon, California, and then later Utah, surprising to no one. He served a full-time proselytizing mission to Orlando, Florida from 2015 to 2017, and then came back to Utah to attend BYU. His missionary experience then smoothly translated into door-to-door sales experience because he started working for a few different sales companies, including Vivint, which we've talked about briefly on the channel before.
Yeah.
And he was working there while he was studying at BYU. And then he graduated in 2021 with a degree in entrepreneurial management. And then interestingly, as of like more recent years, he's competed in 3 seasons of American Ninja Warrior, which was interesting. And then also McKay was doing some research and found out that he actually worked for the controversial crypto company called SafeMoon for a year.
So if you're into crypto, you've probably heard about that. It was based in out there in Utah, and the guy is facing like big jail time.
The SafeMoon company owner, not Jonas.
Not Jonas. But on the American Ninja Warrior part, while we were waiting to do this one, we've been watching Peacock a lot, and we were getting ads for American Ninja Warrior, and there he was.
There
with
was his
MyKayla.
face. Yep.
During the promos for the show.
So nonetheless, their marriage a little bit Mormon angle, of course. So they were married in the Gilbert, Arizona temple, and they were married in the temple, which means that they are, like, at the time at least, and it seems now, are tithe-paying, very devoted members of the Mormon church, and you don't get the privilege of getting married in the temple if you are not. And if you don't have all the details on that, and if you aren't familiar with the weird ceremonies and everything that goes with that, don't worry, we have plenty of videos to catch you up. But the Mormon lore runs deep with the both of them. They've shared that on MyKayla's side that Jonas and her father would regularly give her priesthood blessings whenever she had to travel to various competitions. She's referenced her patriarchal blessing a bunch, which is, we have a video on that. It's kind of like, Mormons get mad when we call it this, but it's kind of like your Mormon horoscope. They tell you, like, in some detail, fortune telling what the rest of your life is going to look like. And then Jonah is also related to the former General Authority 70, Robert E. Wells, which is, in Mormonism, like, it's pretty cool to be related to people of power, like general authority positions or leadership positions, like high up in the church. People who have been called by God to help lead the church. And so to be related to a 70, is it as good as like the tip-top leadership? No. But is it still pretty cool for
Those
Mormons?
people are the greater pool of people that might become an apostle later on. So it's always excited kind of thing to be related to.
And so now that we've given you kind of an overview of the people that we're going to be talking about, we have to talk about their YouTube channel a little bit. So MyKayla started her YouTube channel, and the bulk of the views, if you look back through the things that she was posting, come from obviously her time at the Olympics. And we know from I know, unfortunately, from listening to their podcast, that they would film a lot of the stuff at the Olympics. Jonas would edit it, and then they would post it onto the channel. And those were the videos that seemingly got the most amount of traction. So that was back a few years ago. She's retired from being a gymnast at this point. And so the channel has shifted a little bit. They did this podcast, which we're going to get to in a second. But part of that is not only the podcast, but the general shift in their content has taken a turn towards mommy vlogging, which, again, if you've been around here before, you know how we feel about mommy vlogging. And no, they don't go as hard as some others do. It's kind of like they post less often, and it's less effortful compared to some of the other, like, obvious big name family vloggers.
I mean, is it less effort?
I don't know. But nonetheless, that's kind of where the pivot has gone. And so shortly before they had their first child in September of 2023, the sporadic uploading kind of shifted to family blogging, and then we saw relatively an increase in views. Like, especially she posted her birth vlog, which, if you know, in fundy circles, posting the birth vlog is like money in the bank. Like, hell yeah. Like, that's what that equals. So they posted that, and then they continued with some other videos that were very family vlogger style, similar to ones other Mormon vloggers we've covered before, like Not Enough Nelsons, where they post like controversial videos like taking our child to the ER, and then they're like filming their kid in the ER, and you're like, what the hell is wrong with you? So like of that variety. So some of the thumbnails I wanted to share with you there's this one about breastfeeding, which I don't have any issue with that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about that on the internet, but the thumbnail kind of weirded me out a little bit. And then we've got a classic ER visit to pull some views, generally speaking, so not a fan of that. And then we also have a like hot topic on the internet that's generally a controversial choice among people, which is taking a newborn to a chiropractor. That's kind of been the pivot of the family content, and it is sporadic. Like, they don't upload consistently. The last upload I think was like from 2 or 3 months ago. And so it's not consistent by any means, but when we bring the anti-family blogger energy, MyKayla should not be an exception.
Nope.
Because she doesn't do it as often, and it doesn't seem like a priority to them as much as like whatever they're doing in their day-to-day life. But nonetheless, they're still doing it. They're still broadcasting their kid's face, sharing medical information, sharing private information with a child who is not old enough to consent to any of these things. And so obviously we've got beef with that. So in terms of controversy, that's something that I personally just can't stand and already rubs me the wrong way.
And that is completely, I feel like I don't see anybody really bringing that point up when it comes to MyKayla. I mean, she definitely is getting a lot of well-deserved heat on other fronts. Yeah. But that is just kind of like a little extra sprinkle on top. Oh, she is taking advantage of her kids' life experience before they can even tell their own story or even talk, for that fact. So that's interesting.
And before we get into the podcast, just to make a point of this, because some people will ask us, like, how do you know that these people are still Mormon and you're covering them and they're not Mormon anymore? Like, how do you know? MyKayla's one of the examples where it is fairly obvious. It's kind of a central tenet of her brand in terms of being Mormon. Like, she's got temple photos all around her house. She talks about Mormonism. There's recent articles from like Mormon-owned news agencies about her. She talks about her faith often. And in terms of influencers, like, it's actually interesting because people always ask, like, Mormons who wear garments, like, how can they do the leotards and things? It's not compatible with Mormonism. And generally that's going to be an exception for garment wearing, is something like that, because it would be like, leotards obviously not compatible. It's like going to be hella obvious if that's what you're wearing. But out of all the influencers we cover,
most of them are not that forward.
And she's one of the few that's actually modest, like by church standards. I don't care if she's modest or not. I don't give a shit. But in terms of like covering influencers, and people get upset because it's like, well, they're obviously not wearing their garments because she's got cleavage and things like that. Like, she doesn't wear things, generally speaking, that would violate that wouldn't be compatible with garments, which is really interesting. Yeah. Especially for being younger. Because like usually on the younger end of Mormon influencers, we see this like pretty decent hesitancy around like wearing garments or even not wearing them at all. We have that kind of as not necessarily proof, but things that kind of point towards that direction. And then they recently, in like the last few months or so, blessed their kid. Maybe it was longer than that. I don't remember. But that's a pretty good indicator that you're still a part of the church, because blessing your child puts your child on the rolls of the Mormon church forever, unless you take them off. And so there's really no reason to be doing that unless you're an active member, and people wouldn't be able to participate in it if they weren't right with God, because then Jonas wouldn't be able to speak during the blessing. So all signs point to she is a current Mormon, at least at this point. Let's talk about the podcast for a second. I stumbled upon their podcast because of, like, obviously research and looking at their YouTube channel. I watched through way too many of them.
Several.
Way too many of them, okay? And we could probably do a whole episode just on the podcast alone. But I pulled some clips that I think really stand out to me in terms of addressing various issues and just kind of bizarre back and forth between the two of them because the premise of the podcast is called Agree to Disagree. And the premise is they have a lot of things that they disagree on. And so it was like finding things that we agree on, but also discussing like a lot of the things that we disagree on, which is an interesting premise for a podcast and a fairly newly married couple. But anyway, so I've pulled some clips that I think are interesting. They don't do this podcast anymore. They stopped. Was that last year?
It was right before the birth of their kid.
Yeah. So that was 2023. So they don't do the podcast anymore, but all of the episodes are still up, and I've downloaded the few in question just in case they decide to do a dirty delete. But I'm not even going to give you context for this one. I'm just going to let it play, and you can feel like I felt when I watched it for the first time.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back to our podcast where we agree
to disagree
on a lot of different things. I like girls' nights because it's the only time ever where I can hang out with my friends without you gaslighting me.
Let me preface this with watching stuff like this makes me feel that my relationship with Jordan has absolutely just poisoned the way that I see other people's relationships, dynamics and stuff. Because I sat there and watched this with Jordan, and the entire time and throughout all of these clips, I was like, why would you post this ever?
And I mean, we've just barely gotten your feet wet with this. And let's give the full disclaimer. This is what they choose to post on the internet. We don't know the details of all their relationship. We don't know how they are in real life, whatever. But you decided to post this and the rest of what we're going to share with you on the internet. And that to me is like uncomfy because like I'm a therapist. So I deal with this. Like I see this stuff every day of my life. But this was like, I feel uncomfortable. Like I feel like I'm watching you fight and then you decided to edit this and post it. Like where... Yeah.
Like there was editing because they had to take the two, well, I guess maybe depending on how they were recording it, but they have two camera angles.
Yeah.
I guess they might have been cutting some stuff out, but like, wow.
So if you weren't uncomfortable enough, let's give you a little bit more.
You hang out with your friends way too much.
Okay, but hold on.
He goes on bro trips like 4 or 5 times a year.
When was the last time I had a bros trip?
You're going on one
soon. You can't even... When?
I don't care. You went to New York. Now you're going to St. George.
Okay, I went to New York in August. And I'm going to St. George in March.
Yeah, but I'm saying you still go on 4 or 5 a year. Not bros dude, where he has to hang out with his bros all the time like he's still in high school. And it's super frustrating because I'm like, every other girl gets to go do stuff with their husbands and mine's off with his friends, going on vacations while I'm like sitting here training and suffering. And I'm like, well, at least you get to have fun.
When we lived in Arizona, I had 0 friends in Arizona.
I don't care. You still had your bro time. Okay, don't listen to him.
When?
Don't listen.
Who would I hang out with?
Anyway, my point is, we come to Utah,
okay,
and he never had to worry about me, like, being out, didn't have to stress or nothing. He just got to go have fun whenever he wanted to, so we moved to Utah.
Again, I'm just feeling like I'm somewhere where I shouldn't be. And, right. Like, I'm not because I'm just, like, watching a YouTube video, but this is, like... This goes on the entire time, and I have multiple clips from this because I just want to illustrate how many opportunities there were for, like, stop filming. I'm too irritated with you. This isn't going to be productive. You're annoying me. Give me a break. Like, anything. The only caveat that I'll give is I don't know around what time this was, but I think it could be theorized that maybe this is around the time that she was very early pregnant, which... Pregnancy brain and irritability and things is not uncommon. So, like, I can give her a little bit on that if she's just generally feeling more irritated with him. Like, that's...
But I feel like
that's fine.
The consistency on the irritability is...
Yeah, it's not just this video, but this video in particular.
Both ways is more kind of the point, is they're both...
It's back and forth. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I feel like I'm at my job and I have to, like, actively remind myself that I'm not.
Also, saying this as someone with a podcast, the fucking headsets, man. I just could not take it seriously. I know I've got this little Shure microphone. I'm sure there are people out there who are like, how could you possibly be taken seriously using that? But the headsets, it's giving Dave Ramsey. I can't get over it.
And then the next day, usually Saturday, that's when I'll hang out with friends. So I get a good balance. But if you're here and I hang out with friends,
like we should just be apart. I'm just kidding.
I'm just saying we just need a schedule. If we scheduled, you have girls' nights and I have guys' nights, then we schedule our own date nights, because that's something that we've talked about, but we haven't really done.
I don't know. If you talk to most girls, all my friends, it's always like, let's hang out, let's see each other. And then we never do because we'd rather just be at home with our husbands. But
the whole, like, she's joking, but she's kind of not. Like, she's joking, like, maybe we should just be apart. But it's like, I can sense the frustration over this. And I'm like, it's fine to have things you disagree on. I'm not going to come out here as a couples therapist especially and say that it's like unhealthy to disagree on things. And they're not necessarily engaging in any conversation that's like super harmful. And they're also not clients of mine. But the awkwardness and the back and forth and the the obvious irritation, like, maybe this isn't a topic that should be discussed on the podcast. Like, I don't know.
It's also just not a great advertisement for short engagements.
For real.
Or short dating. And I mean, we're a great advertisement for that because Jordan and I went from dating to married in 9 months.
It's true.
But, you know, I still feel like we're outliers on that one.
And just talk about things that our husbands don't want to listen to, which is really nice.
You know what? That's one thing that I feel like you and your friends are really good at, is to have a good time just talking. Yeah, well, I don't know, it's just like the drama and stuff that builds up, or like complaints that I don't want to hear. And you finally get with someone that does want to hear, and you guys just talk forever.
I don't think his intent was to be like, I don't want to hear you, but that's definitely how it came across. And looking at her face, that's definitely how I feel like she would have received that. Like, I'm glad you have your friends to go to, because I don't want to hear you bitching. So go talk to somebody else about it. Like, I know the intent wasn't bad. Yeah. But this did not come across well.
And I don't want people out there thinking, oh, wow, this guy is just really stupid, because he is a really smart guy. He got a 35 on his ACT.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
Amazing.
But I don't know, his communication skills are lacking. Which
doesn't translate to relationships all the time, which
it's a learned skill. So, you know.
And our house just happens to be a good central location.
Yeah,
so
it always gets messy. I'll like just clean the house.
I
and then
clean it up after, though. I do a really good job.
No, you don't. Do you see the pillows over there? They're not done right.
Okay, that's different from being clean. That's just the way that you do pillows. Clean. You're karate chopped.
You don't even have them karate chopped, and you have them in the wrong spot.
I probably forget.
Nitpicky, just like nitpicky, and like not in like a fun, like, haha, you could never do it right, haha. Like, this feels serious. Like, this feels legitimately like I'm coming at you right now with my issues and complaints about things, and we're doing it on our podcast.
Odd. I'm not going to sit here and be like, Jordan and I have never fought before.
No.
Because, I mean, we would bicker or whatever. Sure. And usually it's in a high-stress situation, and I don't want to blame the 4-year-old, but he is a component adding a little bit of stress. And, you know, we're not going to post that kind of stuff on the internet, though. I don't know.
I'm not going to fight on the internet over... Like, I'm not going to, like, bitch at you about things on a podcast or something like that.
Unless that's what everybody... Do you guys want to see that? Is that what we're interested in seeing?
We're going to have to be like the family vloggers and be like, wait, stop. Wait. Let's talk about this on the podcast. Don't bring it up.
Wait. Pause the fight.
Hold up.
Hold that karate chop.
Get the camera.
What is karate chopping pillows anyway?
Like, you karate chop it so they're pointy.
Today I learned we grew up in a different house. That is very obvious. A different genre of house.
I was like kind of looking this way because we were about to like get up and go, and then I was like, okay, bye, and then you just came in for it, and so then we were kissing, and we were literally making out for like 2 hours.
It wasn't 2 hours.
Yes, it was. It was
I was
so
trying
long.
to leave.
Yeah, we just kept kissing
'Cause
and
I
you
had
wouldn't
to
let
get back.
go.
I
think because I wouldn't let go, you wouldn't let go, and I didn't know what to do, so we just kept kissing.
See, that was the problem.
But also, Jonas had been on a mission for 2 years, and I think he was like, wow, kissing a girl. And to be honest, he was not that good at first.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think it just had been a while, so it was a little awkward.
I was trying to go, for the record.
No, he was not trying to go. He was trying to stay.
I was. I had to.
Why are we arguing about this? Like,
I would be devastated if
What?
you.
that is like, I imagine the intent was not to be mean.
No, but it comes off that. And I guess for added context, I could see where it could be endearing because it's like, oh, he locked his heart for 2 years when he served a mission to the Lord, and his lips didn't touch anybody else's. So I guess it could be kind of endearing, but the tone was not giving that.
Well, and to even be arguing, like, the context is they argue about, like, whether or not it's okay or not to kiss on the first date. And they're both like, it's kind of like, we don't like kissing on the first date, which is, like, fine. But then it's like,
Whatever.
okay, but you made out for 2 hours on the first date. So, like, why are you upset about it? Why?
Maybe let's update our views on that
And, like,
one.
who cares? Like, you
Yeah.
know, if it's chemistry and connection, then, like, whatever. But apparently, like, we have to argue about it instead.
Because here was the plan. We had a really good first date. I was going to leave. You were leaning in.
Okay, well,
So I thought,
kind of, but not
okay.
really.
I didn't even know if
I
we
literally
well, here's
turned
the
my
thing.
head and I was like, bye, and you just... Psh.
Well, you don't turn your head to say bye like that normally.
No, because I was going to go get up, and I was like, okay, bye. And then I turned, and you're just, like, right by my face, and we just started kissing.
I don't know if that's how it happened.
Okay,
but
I just remember it, so I was like, this is
anyways.
awkward. And I've kissed a lot of guys.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm
Anyways.
just saying.
Why was that detail necessary?
All right.
Like, I don't care. Like, kiss all the dudes you want. You're not going to get any judgment from me. But
It's just kind of
why was
driving
it
home
necessary?
the point of like, this
suck.
was unenjoyable and
Compare
you've been gone on your mission for 2 years and
I've made out with all
Yeah.
these other guys, or I've kissed all these other guys and they're better than you. Like, again, I know the intent, but why'd you put this on the internet?
Like, the next day, and then I remember I was at her house, and that's when I was like,
Oh,
hey,
that's
you want to hang
right.
out? Because she lived right down the street from you.
Anything else?
No, kissing's good, though. I love a good kiss. Jonas doesn't like kissing anymore. Your
So-
breath stinks.
Okay,
Your
I just
lips
say
are
that
gross.
in the winter they do get really chapped, admit it.
Okay, but still,
it's like
he
sandpaper.
always has an excuse.
No, listen. So this
I'm
is the
tired.
thing. We're actually going to get in on this on next week's, not next week's, but in 2.
doing an imitation like that is just
Do you feel awkward? Because I feel awkward. Like, I was watching this and I literally could not believe. I could not believe this was happening. I cannot believe that somebody put this up. And it's like, one thing, I mean, I guess balls to the wall, like, put your shit out there. I guess it doesn't matter, but like,
get it, I guess.
and I thought maybe I was reading into things and I had McKay watch and McKay's like, no. And then I looked at the comments and I screenshotted some of them for you because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't off my rocker with this. Okay. So let me just read some of these to you so that you can get the full, so you can see what other people are feeling. Okay. I don't know either of you personally, but as an outsider looking in, this situation looks bad. The podcast is starting to seem very combative and not entertaining. Both of you look unhappy and worn out. I highly recommend talking to a couples therapist to work through these issues.
I'm a little stunned by that comment anyway, because they were like, it's turning into a combative and unfun thing to watch. And I was like, was anybody enjoying this? I'm being mean, but like from the first episode, I was like, this is not even interesting because I'm doing it for research purposes.
Yeah. I mean, other comments on here, MyKayla and Jonas, you guys need to recognize how toxic your treatment of each other is. You could be so much happier. See a marriage therapist or get out. This isn't what marriage is supposed to be. MyKayla said it's kind of sounding like we should be apart, and that rings true. And then, guys, I know you're young and Mormon, so let me tell you, this should not be how a marriage is. If things are this contentious this early, it's going to get exponentially worse with kids in time. Unpleasant comments to them,
Yeah.
I'm sure. We get them a dime a dozen, and we don't we take constructive criticism where we feel like it's needed, but a lot of times people are just cruel. But in this situation, I was like, okay, I'm not reading into this too much. Other people are also agreeing with me that this seems
weird
and off and potentially bizarre to post on social media. Okay, so different video, different topic. In this video, they're talking about social media, but if you're familiar with the controversy, like the controversy that we're going to get into in a few minutes, are all heavily focused on social media. Like social media is where everything originates. It's where responses are being posted. Like everything is all heavily around social media. And so I found they did a podcast on this. I was like, it'll be interesting, see what they say. But I want you to have this primer as we go into the things that she said and the controversies that we're going to talk about. I want you to remember what she says throughout these clips.
Hurt by it, but now I just sit there and laugh because I'm like, well, what are you doing with your life? You think you can do gymnastics? I'm pretty sure you've never been able to do that in your life, and you're going to criticize me. I'm like, I know I might have bent knees and I might have things that I'm not perfect at, but we're all not perfect at everything we do. Just because I'm a high-level gymnast and I'm good doesn't mean I'm perfect. I'm I still have flaws. I still have things I have to work on. I'm not super flexible. And it's just there's more to that than obviously what I'm telling, but it's just people just blow my mind. I'm like, how can you just sit there and be rude? How would you feel if I just sat there and did that to you all day? It'd make you feel like crap, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Okay, so I want you to remember that.
Remember that one.
That this is how she feels about getting criticism, which are, valid feelings to have when people are making comments, and maybe they're in good faith and maybe they're not. But let's take it one step further.
Those people, by people commenting hurtful things, it just makes themselves feel better and they're just jealous. That's how I look at it. I'm like, well, you're just jealous. So say all the rude things you want. It's not going to make you a better person, and it ain't going to do anything for you. So you might as well just not say it at all and just move on with life. Just so you all know, nobody, no influencer, nobody is perfect. We all have our flaws.
Okay.
Ooh, she got us there. Ooh, she got us so good.
I have not been rude. I could be rude.
In your opinion.
But I have not been. But anyway, I want you to just keep this in mind as we move into some of the reasons why we've made this video to begin with. I want you to have that in the back of your mind as we move into this. Keeping in mind that this is her perspective about what people should do when it comes to commenting on other people, criticism, jealousy, all of that stuff. So just keep that in mind as we talk about the real reason why all of this has come up to begin with. We're going to come back to some clips later on, but again, I just wanted to give you the vibe for what's happening here. And let's talk about the main reason that people have wanted us to cover her so much is because of her recent controversies, and then she has a few that date back to a few years ago, and some that aren't talked about as often. We'll start talking about kind of why she's a controversial figure and go through some of these things. Some of these you might be familiar with, some of them you've probably heard before, but we wanted to give kind of more of a comprehensive covering of some of these things for the people who might not be as familiar so they can get caught up.
One of the less discussed controversies with MyKayla was her being an MC for the Anasazi Camp Foundation Gala back in 2022. The Anasazi Camp belongs under the troubled teen industry umbrella as a wilderness camp. And many survivors have shared their stories of being at Anasazi, and they are pretty horrific. And on top of it, including pushing Mormon and homophobic beliefs, it's just par for the course, honestly. Additionally, you might remember hearing about Anasazi because that was the camp that Ruby Franke sent her teenage son to a few years ago at the behest of a recommendation from Jody Hildebrandt. And now she is in prison for abusing her children. So,
did MyKayla probably know about much of that at the time and the Ruby stuff at the time? No, probably not.
I mean, the troubled teen industry
thing has been like on the radar in terms of media for the last little while, with more people talking about like why it's problematic, why
at least
it's
like
abusive.
I remember Paris Hilton talking about it at least like 2019 or 2020, which was several years beforehand.
Yes.
In Utah was where she was at. So
yes. And so I'm all for like, you know, inspirational and motivational speakers and shit. And like, that's great. But
let's not just go wherever they ask you to, right?
The troubled teen industry thing is a massive issue, and the survivor stories from this camp in particular are horrifying. And so to go and kind of be in support of that, even if she didn't really know, I mean, it's on you when you're going to go speak for an organization to make sure that your values align with theirs. And so this is like a less talked about one, and people might have feelings about it. And if you have feelings about it, relax in the comments and just take a breath. But it's one that is bothersome to me because of what we know about the troubled teen industry and what we know about Anasazi in particular. So in terms of gymnastics, we have to go back much further than our most recent Olympics that we're going to get to in a second. But in terms of controversy, MyKayla has been on the kind of controversial gymnastics radar since the 2016 Olympics. MyKayla commented on this a little bit in their podcast, titled Our Thoughts on Cancel Culture. So I wanted to include a few clips so you have an idea, like from her perspective of what happened here and her perspective on it.
A lot of you can remember going back to 2016 Olympics. Obviously, a lot of the decisions that were made for the team, a lot of people didn't seem that it was fair, and especially, you know, according to me, because I placed 4th in the all-around at Olympic trials, and they took like 7th and 8th and put them on the team, and then didn't take us that was 4th and 5th. They made us alternates. So, I mean, I totally get it, because for an Olympic team, you know, you need strengths from different areas, so they got to create a team, but, you know, a lot of it has to do with politics, and according to the rule book, you're supposed to take rank order. So anyway, after Olympic trials, they post like a black and white picture. It's always like black and white, and they like put the Olympic team, and some girl cropped Gabby Douglas out because some people said she shouldn't have made the Olympic team, and she cropped Gabby out and put me over Gabby. And then it was really sad because, well, of course I retweeted it because I was mad, and I was like, that's how I feel. Not saying maybe Gabby should have been off the team, but that's just what they had done. But like, yeah, this was back in 2016.
Yeah, so I'm just saying you were young.
Oh, I was young. Yeah. And I didn't think of those things. I didn't think like, oh, how could it hurt them? Because I was so hurt and devastated that I was just thinking about myself, you know. And I had retweeted it, and a bunch of people retweeted it, like, because everybody was thinking, you know, like that should have been the team or whatever. And like, nothing against Gabby. Like, I love Gabby. Gabby and I, like, we would room together at camps during that year when she made her comeback after 2012. We were friends, and it was just so hurtful because after that I got like shamed so hard, and everyone called me racist. And then everybody thought that I made the edited picture. And I was like, I did not make that. Can't you see that this girl made it and I just retweeted it? Anyway, it turned out really, really bad. And of course I had to come out and, you know, say my apologies. And after the fact,
Didn't you like delete your Twitter for a little bit because it was so bad?
Yeah, but I can't remember if it was during.
So she retweeted this photo where she got pasted over one of her teammates to be like, this is the team it should have been. Like, I'll put a picture up so you can see. And then there was also like the like eye covering monkey emoji was in that tweet, which some people interpreted to be racist because Gabby Douglas is black. So the context for that tweet, this is kind of in my opinion, like the initiation of the like MyKayla Skinner racist connection is happening because of what was happening here at this time. And some people could say that they're not connected. Some people say that they are connected. You be the judge. It doesn't matter to me what you think necessarily in that realm.
I feel like the only context to bring up on this one is at the time there was no regular emoji covering its face.
Yes.
But other than that,
And she wasn't.
I'm not going to say that it's not valid.
Yeah. I mean, retweeting it. I mean, I know people are like, retweets are not an endorsement, but
What?
it is. Like it
How
is.
are you guys operating on Twitter if you're like, oh yeah, if I retweet something or like it, it's not an endorsement? Like, you felt enough to interact with it. I don't know.
This caused a bit of a shitstorm for her at the time. And when people are unhappy with people on the internet, you know what they do? They tend to go back and look at their old tweets, right? It's like the classic celebrity going back and looking at tweets kind of thing. And I'll be the first to say, like, when you're young and you have social media, like especially our generation that grew up with social media is like beginning social media, all kinds of shit our generation posted that shouldn't have been said.
Yeah.
Like just things that were inappropriate, things that would be very even offensive in today's day and age. Like I will give some space to that as like a young, stupid person. Like as a formerly also young, stupid person who probably put things out there that would be questionable in today's day and age. And probably then too. But
yeah.
I can give a little wiggle room.
I tweeted a lot of embarrassing shit and racist shit and just awful things on when I had Twitter when I was a young person.
You're also Mormon, so there's some deconstruction that kind of needs to happen. Like if you leave the like that we had to do with like the racist beliefs and things that we were taught, and like that's a process and there's accountability that has to be had there, and like that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, people dug up her old tweets and they allegedly, this is the only one that I could find on the internet, and this is alleged. I don't have any like legitimate proof that this is the actual tweet in question, but people were able to find some alleged tweets where she tweeted the N-word, which
not a great look in conjunction with the other racist allegations.
Not okay. And so that is where kind of these connections began. There's also an alleged theory out there that she had like said it on her Snapchat story. I couldn't find any evidence to support that, but that's another thing that I saw out there kind of in the discourse. So take that with a grain of salt. But not okay. And then when you come out and say, I'm not racist, or you make claims like that, it
kind of falls on deaf ears.
Those two things do not, cannot coexist necessarily without some serious accountability and, apology and things being had. So, MyKayla tweets an apology. It was 2 sentences, if I recall correctly. So, amid that controversy in 2016, she tweets out, I'm so sorry if I offended anyone. I was in the wrong by retweeting that tweet. I'm so grateful to be part of the team. Go USA, #Rio.
Very
brief,
to say the least.
So I'll let you, again, formulate your own opinions on how you feel about that. Feel free to drop them in the comments. I mean, she made an apology for this, which I read you, which is, better than nothing. However, I feel like, and maybe she did apologize to Gabby, but I feel like a personal apology was in order. Maybe not necessary to all the girls on the team, but particularly to Gabby. And even if you disagree, even if you were I don't necessarily think that Gabby shouldn't have been on the team, but you retweeted the thing with her cutout.
Yeah.
So what do you want her to think?
That's not really, I don't know about everybody else's friendships, but I would never do that to my friend.
No.
That's wild.
MyKayla also keeps this story with we're friends. I roomed with them, because if you're caught up on the controversy, she said the same thing about Simone. And look where they are now. So it's we seem to have a pattern here, but just because you're friends and you room together doesn't mean that these women actually like you either.
It's just like with missionary companionship.
You just got to suffer through it. And I'm not saying that's necessarily what they feel, but I would have feelings about that. And just because she seems to it seems like there's less accountability because she wasn't the one who made it. Which I don't care. You retweeted it.
Yeah.
That's not sportsmanlike behavior.
You seem to be happy that somebody else did it.
Uh-huh. Because you could have just left it, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Some people digging back on celebrities' Twitter accounts or social media and finding something to cancel them on from years ago.
Yeah, it's so annoying.
Yeah, I think that's even a bigger problem, because then people are intentionally looking for it. Why would you ever intentionally look for a reason to get mad at someone?
Right. And the fact that you have to bring up the past.
Yeah, that's a pretty terrible way to live your life, if you're constantly looking for.
Well, then it just kind of makes it funny because they're still angry with that person. They have to find a way to still be mad at them, even though like things have moved on, things are different. I don't know, it's like obviously they can't find baggage, so then they have to go and dig up the past because they can't find anything to be mad about. I don't know, just stupid to me.
Yeah, I think that's
I feel really bad for people. I'm glad I'm not that famous.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't know how they do it.
Yeah, like one person, a good example I should have thought of earlier is like Joe Rogan, because he has the biggest podcast in the world.
So it's just interesting to me, like, you know, she talks about how this happened to her and like people dig up tweets and stuff, but it's like, you know, I don't encourage anybody to go out and do that because I don't know how productive that is, but if there's stuff in there, like it's not just like they just had a thought pop into their head one day and they're like, I wonder if MyKayla's racist. It was this has racist undertones, so let's investigate.
And she makes it out to be like, oh, people went and dug through. You can just, if you know how to use a search engine, you just need a couple keywords. It's not that hard. Like, be for real. It's not like somebody's wasting so much time. And a lot of times when you make an apology that is that lackluster, I mean, to say the most that I can of it, people are like, well, maybe let's look and see if there are things in the past that would lead her to just kind of brush this off or some sort of bias or something like that. So, you know.
And then I found an article from a few years ago, a Slate article that talked about kind of some of MyKayla's unsportsmanlike conduct in terms of gymnastics, which includes a few different things. So the two that are mentioned in the article is there was an improvised salute to teammates in her floor choreography routine in 2018, but it was interpreted as finger guns at a rival squad, which is like not very sportsmanlike if that was the intent, but I could see that being misinterpreted. So, especially
coming from a United States athlete, is like
right.
Yeah.
So I'll let, like, that one might be one that we might have some room for interpretation. But again, we're just kind of getting unsportsmanlike vibes. And then a tweet the following year in 2019, she says, so far this season, I've stuck 5 double fulls without both judges giving me a 10. Stay tuned for our meet versus UCLA on Saturday and see if we can make it 6. Hashtag I love gymnastics. So she's literally saying that the judges aren't giving her perfect scores for her, like, perfect gymnast behavior, we'll say. And because of that, she's like, let's see if we can make it 6 times. Let's see if they'll score me badly again. So it's like,
just digging at the judges.
And I don't understand, like, lots of people have critiques for her form and like her technique and different things.
But we can't do that. We've never done gymnastics in our lives, so we can't critique that. We're going to defer to the people who know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Well, what are you doing with your life? You think you can do gymnastics?
Shit, if I know if it looks bad or not. Like, I think...
Per what MyKayla has said.
Yeah, you know...
That we've already seen.
So, this is kind of giving people the vibe that, like, there's a... Straight out of the gate, she's coming off kind of unsportsmanlike, which... I don't know. Like, I get the frustration if that's how you feel, but I feel like if the judges thought you were worthy of a perfect 10, you would have got a perfect 10, or giving a 10 out of like the 14 or 15 or whatever the scoring is.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't know. Like, this kind of instills the, like, not to make a Mormon connection here, but like with Mormons, we often see this idea of like entitlement, where it's like,
oh yeah,
I'm entitled to things, especially with Mormon men and like patriarchy and misogyny, but like, it's expected at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I did this perfectly. I get a perfect score. Like, did you really, though?
Even, I mean, just to illustrate a more larger sweeping point, with all the Mormon content that I get served on Instagram, whenever I open up those comments, I can almost guarantee every single time that the top comment is going to be somewhere along the lines of, all that's great, but you're not Christians.
Yeah.
Every time. And a lot of those posts are in response to that, where they feel entitled to be counted in with the Christians despite their differences in theology. And like, I don't know, it's giving that same kind of entitlement. Like, we have the restored gospel, we're doing it right, and you guys are doing it halfway. But then they get all butthurt when they're not getting included in with the other Christians.
So is that at play here?
Maybe. I don't know.
Potentially. Like, again, the feelings themselves, like feeling upset about like how you feel or interpret things is fine. But then to like tweet it out there doesn't
inspire confidence.
No.
You were
like, I can tolerate like
sport.
petty queen behavior, but this doesn't come off as like petty queen to me. So that was the 2016 incident and left a bad taste in people's mouths with MyKayla from that point forward for quite a bit of people. And in 2020, she goes on to compete 2021 Olympics. She places 11th in the all-around and 4th place on the vault, which notably is worse than when she competed in 2016, yeah. If I recall correctly. And so it was at this time that her team member, Simone Biles, withdrew from the Olympics to prioritize her mental health because there was a lot of pressure and things happening for her. And so she withdrew, which caused a shitstorm for her, which I empathize with her deeply.
Awful.
Because of how much of a mess that was and how mean everyone was to her in that moment. But because Simone dropped out, MyKayla ended up taking her place on the vault, which means that MyKayla was also able to secure her silver medal. So this is a real sticking point for like MyKayla haters or like MyKayla accountability folks. Because people say that she never would have placed if it weren't for Simone's withdrawal, which again, I'm not a gymnastics expert, so I can't speak like on her techniques and capability on whether or not that's true. I think, you know, anybody who can win an Olympic medal is obviously decently good at what they do comparatively to the rest of the population. But this was a sticking point for some people that are not big MyKayla fans. So in line with the like racism thing, like I wanted to touch on the political beliefs a little bit because we've had some people point these things out. She's been arguably more careful in recent years about what she posts on social media, I feel, up until like these last few months. So the only political thing that I could find for them was she liked her mom has a public Instagram, and so she liked her mom's very pro Trump, like to a pretty gross degree, post during his inauguration. And so she liked that post, which again, does that mean that she's a Trump supporter? I don't know. Would it surprise me based on some of the other things that she says it does, and her being Mormon, and Mormons generally lean right? And then to kind of support that kind of thinking, in 2022, she filmed a project that was used by her home state, Arizona. The Senate Republicans in Arizona did like a little filming video thing with her, where they also gave her a fake medal, which I thought was funny. But this to me just kind of doesn't necessarily cement, but supports what we're thinking with most Mormons, and that they tend to be more conservative or right leaning, because this more closely aligns with the Mormon belief system. And so that would make sense in that arena. But I didn't see anything else politically that like caught my eye or that was like, oh God, like this is concerning. Like she seems to have not speak necessarily on these other things as often. I mean, clearly probably given past experience.
Well, and she likely just is like, I'm not a politics person, and then just votes, one way, which we can probably assume is
well,
Republican.
And we know, like she's talked about, she gets irritated when people are like messaging her on Instagram and shit and like being rude about it. And I'm sure when she posts about politics, there's to some degree that probably happens. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And so she hasn't posted much in the realm of politics that I could find. So in our opinion, another area of controversy is...
Oh, the MLM connection.
Yes.
We did mention her briefly in the MLM video that we did a couple months.
Mormons and MLMs.
Look at all these. Boom. Look at all these links to the old videos in case you need to get yourself caught up on our last few months. But yeah, MyKayla had been involved, and maybe even still is, but didn't she like kind of clean her feed up? So
I haven't seen anything with doTERRA in a while.
But she was involved with doTERRA, maybe still is. She's made multiple posts, and an old fan of hers messaged us and told us that she used to have them in videos all the time, but they don't seem to be present anymore. stating that she uses doTERRA. We also found an old Facebook posts from other people plugging the product, saying that an Olympian uses it. And when a friend and fellow creator called her out for using the products, her response was rather unsurprising.
Today I got to tell this person, MyKayla Skinner, that MLMs are bad. I was tagged in this picture of her using doTERRA, and so I said, this is not a good look for you, and she said this, and I said that. And I'd do it again. Update on MyKayla Skinner, she finally replied on my TikTok. Here's the first one. You should try being a nicer person. You should try to not promote something for money when the business model hurts people and the majority lose money. That was quickly deleted once I commented back. Yeah, there was a second one. You should actually know your facts. You should actually read the facts on the website, because I have. That one was also quickly deleted. We can tell that calling her out for being problematic has really pissed her off. Lucky for her, I only called her out on one of her problematic things. It would be such a shame for people to know that she's allegedly racist. Your social status does not keep you from being held accountable, MyKayla.
Those clips come from Julie Joe. She's an anti-MLM creator. Go follow her, subscribe. She's great. But this is just, I mean, it just kind of makes me laugh a little bit. Like, to say that Julie Joe, who, like, does this very well and talks about MLMs all the time, and then to, like, hop in her comments and be like, you should know your facts. Like, okay. So doTERRA is an MLM. Anybody who wants to debate that can do that on another video and go talk to the other anti-MLM creators about it, because they've talked about it in depth. They are an MLM, so don't argue about it in the comments, please.
So you may be asking, what are we referring to? What's got her back on everybody's radar? If you're not in the know. I feel like if you're on the internet, you have heard about this,
Probably.
maybe even a little bit, but
Why we're here. Now, at least.
this time
is because MyKayla decides to do multiple YouTube lives reacting to the current, like, this year's Olympic trials. So she decides to do a live reaction. People are in the chat talking to her while she's watching. So this is where everything goes wrong, like horribly, horribly wrong. She's since privated the video that we're talking about, the one at least that had the most people complaining about it. So I went and tried to find it, and I found a link, and it is private. So she has taken it off her channel, and it's not accessible anymore unless you have the link, or unless you are her, because she privated it, I guess. But other people managed to pull clips when it was happening. So it has not been wiped from the internet entirely. So let us just give you some of the context for the things that she said, and then we'll talk about why everybody is rightly so upset about them.
But besides Simone, I feel like the talent and the depth just isn't like what it used to be. I just noticed, like, I mean, obviously a lot of girls don't work as hard. The girls just don't have the work ethic, like, and it's hard too because it's safe sport. Like, coaches can't get on athletes, and they have to be really careful what they say, which in some ways is really good, but at the same time, to get to where you need to be in gymnastics, you do have to be, I feel like, a little aggressive and a little intense, because I feel like, you know, Russia's not going to be there, so they don't have to have the stress of Russia. And then what other teams really are there? I mean, there's a lot of teams that have gotten better and have gotten stronger, but I feel like no matter what, as long as we do a decent job, we'll be fine. Even just some of the other girls that fell twice and still ending up in second place in the all-around is just kind of crazy to me. Is it Hazley or Hesley?
Insert Kim K clips.
Get your fucking ass up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
I've never heard, insert the Schitt's Creek clip of David when he says, I've never heard someone say so many incorrect things all at once, one right after the other in a row. Like, I've
Seriously.
never, like, she truly, every sentence, like, and obviously this is clipped a little bit.
Yeah.
But every sentence that came out, like, one right after the other, I was just like,
serious?
oh my God. Like, you're like, to me, as like a unathletic, generally speaking, now at this time in my life, human being, to like look at people who are in the Olympic trials competing to be like the best athletes in the world, possibly, and say that they don't have work ethic anymore.
Seriously.
And they aren't as athletic or hardworking.
It's like when your fucking uncle is trying to lecture you about how you would never make it in the workforce when he was a kid. Like, first, I mean, you know, she's got one more Olympic medal than I have, so I really can't say anything on that. But it's giving just like jealous.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the vibe. And remember what she said.
Yeah.
When people make comments like this.
Well, you're just jealous. So say all the rude things you want. Like, it's not going to make you a better person. Well, you're just jealous. You're just jealous.
Jealous. Especially like building up to the Olympics. It's just a really strange strategy to be out there tearing people down. Like, critique comes after. Then we can say, oh, this was going wrong. Oh, they were having trouble with this. But like,
this
I feel
too
like
far.
we should be, especially if you know you're not going to be competing, I feel like we should just be building everybody up.
Yeah.
That's my unsolicited
well, like giving,
opinion.
like, you know, think about the way that like the people who like commentate, like the people who are commentating while the Olympics are happening, like they're saying like, oh, like that was a missed thing or this was a deduction or like whatever. I feel like the gymnastics people are always like so intense and over the top, but when it comes to like commentating, but like that makes sense in terms of, so I can understand what's happening as a person who's not involved in the sport at all. But like to be like, they don't work hard anymore. And don't get me wrong, I have beef with like past commentators on athletes and things too. Like that's a thing all its own. But to come out here and be saying these things and then to come for safe sport and to be making positive comments about like the Marta era.
Well, yeah. And then like, oh, sometimes you just have to be intense and get in people's face. Like, you know, just because that's how you had it does not mean it's the only way to go.
No, and I mean, safe sport is there to protect athletes from the abuses and the horrible things that we've seen over the last few years, which includes coming from coaches that she was under. Like, she mentions the Marta era and says, like, she didn't do everything right or, like, just she didn't go about it the right way, but there was something about that era, you know? So if you're not as familiar with gymnastics, so you have like a crumb of context. Marta is an old coach for the U.S. women's gymnastics.
Do we have another name?
Carioli is her last name.
Oh, okay.
And so her and her husband are both like world-renowned gymnastics coaches, or at least they were. Like Marta started working with the women's team like mid-1990s. Yeah. So she was the coach for a long time. But Marta's methods are very controversial because she was extremely intense. And so some former gymnasts have come forward since working with her saying that the tactics that she used, in my opinion, were abusive. So like former gymnasts have claimed that both Marta and her husband, who was also working with the girls, would like hit gymnasts, like physically hit them for like errors and mistakes and things. People like former gymnasts have claimed that they've withheld like food and water from them and like for extended periods of time, like to the point that there was one woman who talked about how some girls would eat like toothpaste before going to bed because that was the only thing that they could eat, and like sneaking. Even MyKayla in a past video talked about how like snacks weren't okay, and like coaches would, like, not hers specifically, but she was like, coaches would check your bags to make sure you weren't eating anything you weren't supposed to. And so, like, these methods, like, this is psychological abuse.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing okay about any of this.
They're treating them like circus animals, which
literally
are already the pinnacle of mistreating something in order to get it to do what you want it to do. It's like...
Exactly. And if you weren't familiar, like, the Cariolis, the coaches had their own ranch where all the girls participated in, you know, trying to prepare for the Olympics. But the doctor who was at the ranch was Larry Nassar. So their connection to Larry Nassar is that they worked with him and he was at the ranch where they were coaching the girls. And in 2016, the Cariolis were included in a lawsuit alleging that they had turned a blind eye to the abuse that Larry was committing and not protecting the athletes. Which, given the fact that they were working together and also given the fact that, like, parents weren't allowed for extended times at the ranch, I think there's potentially something to that. Again, this was just alleged. They've kind of been exonerated at this point from what I've seen because they are Romanian and they have left the country. So they have left the United States, and I have seen no follow-ups. They sold the gym, and there has been no follow-up to any of this since that I can see. It seems like the lawsuits and anything, like they're not, in this case with the two of them, aren't going anywhere. So in any sense, in my opinion, to say that these people did anything right, in my mind, is hard to believe from the perspective of like the women who have been abused.
Yeah, it's very callous. I don't know. After hearing that, it would be like the only thing that these people are doing is producing Olympic medals for the United States, and then anything they were doing it at whatever cost.
Yep.
At the cost of abusing people.
And they didn't care. Like, they've been on the record multiple times saying, like, I know my methods are controversial, but I produce the best gymnasts in the world. And so until that stops being the case, like, and that's not a healthy way to go about it at all. And so that's why I think this has struck so many people, because of lots of people's experience under these coaches. And, you know, MyKayla was under these people and was like, went to training camps and things at the ranch. And so she worked with them, but she had, like, when the whole Larry Nassar thing came out, she has said explicitly that she was never abused by Larry Nassar because because she had a coach independent of Marta, her coach would always go in with her to the doctor's appointments with Larry Nassar. And so she was never specifically, she said, previously abused by Larry Nassar, which is different than a lot of her teammates who did suffer at the hands of Larry Nassar, and he's now in prison for
forever.
A long, long time. So
literally forever. I think how long did he get? It was like, I think it's 1,000 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. And many U.S. like women gymnasts have bravely spoken out about what they experienced, like at the ranch and with Dr. Nassar and everything. So this is why I think this particularly struck a chord with a lot of people, because it's hard to like. I'm sure she's not an all bad person, but when you do things like that, it makes it really hard for me to think any differently.
I'm sorry if you can do that to people.
Like, that's it for me.
You're a bad person. So there's no.
And so safe sport is rules and regulations in place to prevent things like this from happening. And so to come out and be like, yeah, safe sport's good and all, but like, you can't be like as intense and things. And I'm like, is that necessary? Because
you're just suggesting that basically these people, these current gymnasts are not as good because they weren't getting hit.
Right.
And starved and psychologically abused.
Yeah, like that doesn't,
which is not a cute look.
No, don't love that.
It's the worst version of, I had to walk to school uphill both ways with the driven snow, and I only wore socks.
Oh my God, what are we doing? Additionally, she made some other comments in these lives that also rubbed people the wrong way, including, in my opinion, what comes off is not like terrible, but just kind of like backhanded compliments, particularly towards now 6-time Olympic medalist Suni Lee.
Suni impresses me because I look at her and I would never imagine her doing a layout full on floor. Like, she just looks so airy and light and elegant. Yet it's crazy because sometimes when I look at Suni, I don't think of her as like a gymnast. Like, her body type, she just looks like she'd be a different athlete to me for some reason. And then sometimes when she just whips stuff out, I'm like, how does she do that?
So people were rubbed extremely wrong that she's made a derogatory comment, in my opinion, about Suni's body, which in general, why are we talking about this? Like, why are we commenting on body? Like, I can understand like form or like technique,
but like physical body,
but like physique and body and things, like, why are we doing that? Like, I thought we were done doing that.
Especially now that she has 6 times, or has she medaled before?
Yeah.
Oh, so at least 6 times as many medals as you.
Yes.
Sorry.
But people were especially not impressed because Suni has talked about, she's been very public with the fact that she has an incurable kidney disease that has made like her journey back to the Olympics extremely difficult. And so like the fact that she's had to overcome so much and have like a health condition that probably impacts the way she looks to some degree, and then to have people be commenting on it.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't have the body of a gymnast. Like, what?
What does that
Tell
even
me
mean?
how you meant that in any sort of positive way, because I don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Well, that body that isn't of a gymnast won 6 medals.
Is a 6-time medalist now. So, like,
yeah.
what's the problem?
Obviously, either her opinions are deeply flawed, or she's just mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's just trying to be mean.
How can you just sit there and be rude? Like, how would you feel if I just sat there and did that to you all day? It'd make you feel like crap, you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like,
And then this next clip really threw me for a loop. The other person talking in this clip is Jonas, her husband.
I don't know.
People are saying you should come out of retirement.
After watching this, it makes me want to, because I don't know why everyone's falling apart.
How would you feel if I just sat there and did that to you all day?
So unfortunately, the U.S. had, like, this happens, and it's devastating, obviously, for the athlete that it happens to, like, had some injuries during Olympic trials, which is, like, I can't not even imagine working my life to get to the Olympics and then getting injured during the Olympic trials, like, how fucking devastating that would be. And so there's injuries happening, and MyKayla proceeds to make it about herself. She's retired. She said that she's retired. But then being like, well, maybe I'll come out of retirement because everybody's falling apart. Like, so much blame.
Please.
So much blame. And then people were also irritated that throughout these comments, Hesley, which is another one of the U.S. Olympic team members, like, she pronounced her name wrong throughout the thing, despite being corrected by Jonas like multiple times. She goes on to continue saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I mispronounce things sometimes, like, it happens, but, like, if you're willingly being corrected,
at some point it's got to catch on.
Like, again, you're not helping people not make connections between the racism. Like, I'm sorry.
I feel like Hesley's a really easy one too.
Well, and she got it right, like, multiple times. It wasn't like she was struggling too bad. So, like, I don't know what that's about. Maybe she was, like, scrambled brained. I don't know. So obviously the media picks this up and starts to run with it, because these are, like, very controversial comments to be making. And so in the days following some of the media coverage of the things that MyKayla says, Simone Biles, greatest of all time, especially now, Simone Biles, tweeted a very vague response that said, not everyone needs a mic and a platform.
Oop.
Which I thought was, like, a really good way to respond to this. Like, not necessarily giving any more attention, but just being like, straight up, bitch, no.
No, what she should have said is, not everybody needs a headset.
That's true. That's true. We are Simone stans in this house. But so amid the media firestorm that happens, obviously, I don't know if she has a PR team. I think she's represented by an agency, so there's probably some conversation about it. But she posted an apology to Instagram on July 6th.
That podcast, if she has a PR person, I feel like that podcast would never have happened.
Yeah, I mean, fair.
But anyway, here's the apology.
Dear Team USA and our gymnastics community, I want to formally apologize to Team USA and to our gymnastic community for my comments during my recent YouTube episodes of the gymnastics Olympic trials. It was not my intention to offend or disrespect any of the athletes or to take away from their hard work. Your hard work and dedication has paid off, and I congratulate each and every one of you. Upon reflection, I was comparing the Marta era to the current era. I'm coming to terms that I have not fully dealt with the emotional and verbal abuse I endured under Marta that perhaps led to my hurtful comments. I take full responsibility for what I said and deeply apologize. It is most important to me that the sport I love continued on the path of healing and ensures a positive environment for all. I wish you all the very best in Paris. I will be cheering you all on. Go Team USA. Love, MyKayla. Thoughts?
A little bit better than the last one.
Better than the last one. I'll give
better
that.
Than the last one, but
it's... You know, I don't doubt that there is obviously lasting effects for anybody who was psychologically abused by a coach in the gymnastics Marta era. Like, I don't doubt that at all. But it does, like, I understand some of the criticism that she's receiving is like she's taking a victim kind of mentality to it, because in previous, you know, interviews and things, she said that she hasn't really talked much about the abuse necessarily. Yeah. And so it doesn't mean that her abuse isn't true or that it's not true or it doesn't count or anything. It's just, I think some people are thinking that because of her including that in the statement, it's kind of detracting from, like, the ownership and accountability of what she's trying to do.
I feel like the frustration comes from the fact that her experiences didn't inform what she was saying and didn't make it seem less like she was minimizing other people's experiences being abused in the name of the sport or whatever.
I think there's like a time and place. Like, I don't doubt at all that maybe she has not come fully to terms with the trauma of what she experienced under psychologically abusive coaches. Is it a possibility? Sure. But it looks like a deflection.
Yeah.
Like, this is why I said those things versus like, there was no fucking excuse for me to say any of that. And it was like off the handle and inappropriate, and I shouldn't have said any of it. And so, again, like, I'll give more credit to this apology because it was better than the last one, but I understand where some of the criticism is coming from. And perhaps if I was advising her, like, from my non-public relations background and having no experience in this whatsoever, I feel like I would have potentially left that part out because it I feel like it devalues the apology you're trying to give. Yeah. Like, allow that to exist separately. Like, allow that, like, talk about that in another context or talk about that in another space because it's valid and it's important. But I don't think this was the spot for it. After the apology, no acknowledgement from any of the U.S. gymnastics girls, at least that I saw in that time.
They had bigger fish to fry, honestly.
Literally. Honestly. Come on. And then after the United States won gold,
quite literal bigger fish
for the
fish
team. The caption that Simone Biles posts a photo of all of them, like all the gals, obviously just won gold, like hella fabulous, amazing accomplishment. Unsurprising with Simone anymore, but like we watched all of it and all the girls are just phenomenally talented. But Simone posts lack of talent, lazy Olympic champions. When I tell you, I was so thrilled with this caption.
Jordan gasped.
It is so funny to me because it's like, I think it's perfect because it's not necessarily calling direct attention to it. And when you when you open your fucking yapper and you put shit out into the universe, there are consequences for the shit that you say. Even if you apologize, just because you apologize does not mean that I don't still get to say how this shit makes me feel or make comments about it or make jokes about it because you lost your right to not have me talk about it the minute you opened your fucking mouth. So, this is like hilarious to me. And I think it is like classy, petty.
And just awesome. I mean,
and I love it.
Height of athletic achievement.
Yeah. Nothing better.
Honestly, you can celebrate how you want, in my opinion.
Exactly. Simone posts this, and then there's absolute chaos happening in the comments, and it's hilarious. And it's, from my account, mostly positive. Everybody interacting like, this is hilarious, so funny, like, this is perfect, you worded this so well. Like, everybody's responding quite kindly. And then we get some more tea. So then Simone tweets after she's posted this photo, "Oop, I've been blocked."
Whoops.
And I've been blocked. Like, so if you don't know what's happening, you have no idea what they're talking about. But if you know what's going on and you understand the caption, then you know this is like MyKayla blocked her. And if that wasn't enough,
which, you know what, protect your peace.
But I think it's hilarious.
Unfortunately, the peace.
But this is her friend that she roomed with.
Yeah. Oh, shit. You're
right. Remember? So then Jordan Childs, who is on the Olympic team and also amazing, she posts a screenshot when she blocked Simone, and you can see it's MyKayla's profile. Oop. So there's no question about who we're talking about anymore. And even people in the comments, like MyKayla Maroney, commented and was like, I feel like I should apologize just for the sake of my name. And other past like Olympians and that are like making jokes MyKayla about Maroney it.
It's funny.
And so I'm not thinking MyKayla is going to respond again, but I'm thinking this is like, girlfriend, this is just the consequences of your actions.
You're getting clowned on.
Like, I'm sorry.
You decided to be petty.
You decided to yap and make comments that were literally offensive. Whether or not you apologized is irrelevant. Like, I get it that you apologized and you want people to like accept your apology, but that doesn't mean that they don't get to do this.
And it's not like you can't claim, oh, I was just young and dumb. Girl, you're 27 years old.
You got a kid.
26, 27 years old.
No excuse for it anymore.
Yeah.
So I thought this was going to be the end of it. I thought it was a perfect, classy, petty queen way to end this, and totally valid. Like, petty in the sense that, like, she deserves it. And, like, this is such a perfect, in my opinion, way to go about it. And maybe that's because people are going to think that I'm a petty queen for instigating this. But nonetheless, I thought we were done with MyKayla at this point. We were getting ready. Like, I was wrapping up the script for the most part and the context and everything. And I was like, I thought we were going to be done.
I know. It almost makes me want to hold off even more.
Again. Because then MyKayla posts on Instagram.
Hey everyone, I sincerely hope that this topic wouldn't need to be revisited, but unfortunately things have really gotten out of hand lately, and it's one thing to disagree with me regarding something I have said or a point I was trying to make, but it's something else entirely when that turns into cyberbullying or even worse. Watching people cheer on the bullying, which has led to threats of physical harm to me, my husband, and our daughter, is disgusting.
So, like, right off the bat, she pissed me off because she starts with, I was hoping I wouldn't have to talk about this again. Like, don't come on here like you're irritated that you have to talk about this again. This is your fault.
Well, and nobody is forcing you to, honestly.
No. Like, and I just don't, like, it just boggles my mind that you can get on here and be upset that you have to talk about this when you were the one that started it.
Seriously.
Like, I don't get it.
Well, I feel like it comes from, she's like, I apologized. What more do you want? As if, like, all of a sudden when you apologize, then it's magically
erased from the internet.
Didn't happen. And nobody's ever going to remember that it ever happened, which is just, I don't know how you can exist in a world where you think that is the case.
Well, and it's not to say that she needs to do anything else, because I think if you've apologized, you've done your part, but you just can't be like obtuse to the fact that this is the consequence of putting this on the internet.
Yeah. Unfortunately, even though you apologized, Simone has the right to be petty, especially
and
because
and hurt.
You were saying shit about her teammates.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, it sounds like she's got a better friendship with her teammates, her current teammates, who just medaled gold in the Olympics, than you did for just rooming with her.
But even if that's, like, it's even more disappointing, because if this is a friend, then why are you acting like this? And I know she gave the exception, like, when she talked in these initial videos, like, everyone except Simone. So she was, like, singling out Simone, but, like, the team this year, Simone is the oldest, which is, like, not old because she's my age. She's not old.
Yeah.
But she's, like, kind of the mom vibe energy of the gymnastics team, and the other girls look up to her. So you think she's not going to come out here and, like, stand on business and be like, don't fucking talk shit? That's not okay. Like, these are other girls who I literally withdrew from the Olympics because of mental health reasons, and you're going to come out here and
be saying this
and say shit like this about my teammates?
Even further than that, I gave you the opportunity to win your medal because of all the shit that was going on, and
that's true.
You're doing the same thing.
Yes. And to say that, like, unequivocally, let's be sure to state, like, it's never okay to send somebody death threats. Like, it's never okay to do that on the internet. It's never okay to threaten somebody or somebody's family or to dox people or to do any of those things. Like, it's not okay. So if you're doing that, don't do that. But like, what Simone is doing, in my opinion, is not cyberbullying.
No.
And so to put that back on her, and I think she does a little bit more as we go here, but that's already bugging me a lot.
So please, at this point, I am just asking for it to just stop for the sake of my family, because enough is enough. So why I'm here is because about 4 weeks ago, I made a comment about work ethic and what seems to be taking place with the rising generation.
This might be controversial of me, and you can let me know if you disagree in the comments. But in my mind, especially, and I'm going to kind of make this political a bit, when people on the right use work ethic, to me, it's almost always a dog whistle for racism. Like, almost always. And so I don't know what her intent here is, but to say, like, my concern with the rising generation of work ethic, like, it's a conservative talking point, and we know what it's rooted in.
Yeah.
To be totally clear, I take 100% responsibility for poorly articulating the point I was trying to make, and the last thing I wanted was to cause harm or offend our U.S. Olympic team. I know these women are incredible, the very best of the best, and almost all of them are my former teammates who I have enjoyed very much cheering on the last few years. I posted a video apology on Instagram, and I followed up with a written apology, and I sent individual messages to each of the women on the team. Only Simone had responded, and she told me that she was proud of me. You guys can imagine my surprise last week when I was celebrating our team winning gold, just to see this brought up all over again by a caption on an Instagram post. If Simone truly believes that I called our team lazy and lacking talent, and if that's really how she feels, I am really heartbroken over it, but not just heartbroken because it isn't how I feel or even what I previously said, but heartbroken because Simone's latest post and others that followed it fueled another wave of hateful comments, DMs, articles, and emails. Hate that includes death threats to me, my family, and even my agent. So my family and my friends don't deserve to be caught in a crossfire here. They've done nothing. So to Simone, I am asking you directly and publicly to please put a stop to this. Please ask your followers to stop. You have been an incredible champion.
And this is where she lost me for good, because you don't get to come out here and say shit on the internet and run your mouth, and then when you don't like the consequences of the actions, you call on your teammate whose fault it is not that any of this happened and have her clean up your mess. I don't think so. Absolutely not. It is not Simone's responsibility to clean up your bullshit.
Well, and it's also, it's ridiculous that people will go to such great lengths sometimes, you know. On the internet, like, it is how it is. Threatening people, especially like her child did not do anything. You absolutely should not be talking about her child in any way, shape, or form, especially when it comes to violence. That's just over the top behavior.
Obviously,
but I mean, I don't know. She's kind of showing that she didn't learn anything from the last time that she broke the internet, because the internet has not really changed.
And Simone doesn't need me to defend her, but, like, allow me to say, like, just because Simone texted you and was like, hey, I'm proud of you for apologizing, doesn't mean that she doesn't still get to have feelings about it. Doesn't mean that she doesn't still get to be, like, irritated or even find it funny. Like, I think, you know, we might even be putting too much stock in this for Simone, like Simone thinking that she's, like, really offended by this. Like, she probably thinks it was fucking funny. And
I think it was funny.
I think it's hilarious.
Honestly, the fact that MyKayla didn't find it funny too, because it is kind of funny to have a little blunder and then apologize for it. And
she could have taken it in good faith.
She could have taken it. If she took it and ran with it, I'm sure everybody would have
let it go.
But instead, she was like, nope, I'm going to block. And then that was just fuel on the fire.
And I'm just confused because you blocked Simone. So did you unblock her so she could see this message? Like, I'm confused because otherwise she's not going to be able to see this, which just makes this all the more funny to me. But it's just, you know, there are people who rightfully so are saying this is the perfect example of, like, white women tears. Like, this is the perfect example of, like, getting on the internet and crying about something that is my own fault. And, like, yes, I will empathize with you. It's probably scary and annoying and obnoxious when people are threatening you on the internet, but it's your fault.
Yeah. And you know what I would do if I were in that same position? You know what I would do? deactivate everything.
Delete it all.
Like, is it right that people are acting violently toward you?
No.
No.
Not at all.
There is a fix for it, and you can just get off the internet and do your thing.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I mean, this is just, it's inappropriate to me, and to also think that, to put the weight of the people who were doing this, like, they're Simone's people.
Simone. Yeah. No.
Like, it's her, like, she has some control over how the internet chooses to interact with you. Like, that's not her problem.
No.
That's not her worry at all, really. Like, I hope she doesn't dignify this even with their response.
Yeah.
I'll respect whatever she decides to do, but it's like, I just don't see where her role in this comes in. Like, I really don't.
Yeah. All she did was make a good joke, honestly.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it was a great joke.
And my guess is she's pretty unbothered by it, but she thought it would be funny.
Yeah.
But she's also going to, like, come out and protect her teammates and defend her teammates, and it's hilarious. I mean, this is just, I've missed the part where she thinks that Simone has any responsibility in this.
Well, she got held accountable for making a racist tweet 6 months before that whole retweet situation.
Yeah.
About not making the team. So everybody needs to be held accountable by Simone for, doing things that are not good.
I didn't know internet. Simone was responsible for all the internet and their poor choices.
Seriously.
This is news to me.
For mental health awareness, and a lot of people need your help now. We've been hurt and attacked in ways that I am certain you never intended. Your performance, the team's performance, and the Olympics in general should be a time that we support one another and lift each other and our country up.
Girl, where was that?
Where was that back at the beginning of July?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Because that's what you were supposed to be doing.
I mean, from some random, I would understand, but you competed. That's probably what you were expecting people to do for you.
Hello? I am so confused. The audacity to come out here and be like, you're supposed to be supporting and uplift, like...
What?
Do we need to roll the clip? Like, do we need to remind you why you got on the internet and apologized to begin with? Like, I'm misunderstanding where you got lost in translation. Like, I am completely lost at this point.
I love our country and I love our team, and I hope that we can move on and move forward and cheer on the rest of our teammates and our athletes together.
I also think it's hilarious that she, like, she's talking about how, like, the Olympics are supposed to be, like, an uplifting time. And I'm like, I know those girls are having the time of their fucking life over there. You think they're given more than a few seconds to your petty bullshit? I don't think so. I think they're having a great time. And I think you are greatly overestimating the impact that you have on them. But it doesn't justify or excuse the behavior in any way.
No.
And so this shocked me, and to be like, I just want to move on. You just rehashed it again. You could have gone quietly into the night. You could have even liked the post and people would probably be like, oh, she's taking it in good faith. Like, she could have made a video about it and, like, blown up the situation, but she didn't. Like, good for her. And now look where we are. Like, she's talking about the articles. Like, they just rolled out like 10 more because she responded.
And look at us now.
You've landed on our radar, which is generally an unpleasant thing if you're a Mormon influencer.
You are, not that this was the straw that broke the camel's back, but...
You already were on our radar, but... Yeah, I have not seen any reaction from Simone. This was only posted, like yesterday or the day before of
very
recently,
this. Yeah.
And so, Simone now that we're towards the end of the Olympics, had a freaking amazing Olympic run this year. She's, I think, one of the most, if not the most decorated women's gymnast ever.
Yeah.
And just had an overall phenomenal experience, and it was amazing to watch. And grateful to be part of this era of time to like see her in her prime, and what an amazing experience it is to watch. But I have not seen anything from her. I generally respect whatever she decides to do in a situation like this, because I would be pissed at this response. I think it's quite ridiculous. I think you've just dug yourself even deeper. I don't think there was anything to be gained from this other than like pity and sympathy, which I think is what you're going for. Like, oh, poor me, look at me. It's like, I mean, I like hit you with my car, and then you scream expletives at me because I hit you with my car, and then I'm crying and upset because you're screaming expletives at me. But you hit me with your car!
Hello!
Like, what do you... Like, I don't... Like, truly, I don't understand where the disconnect is, and it's, like, concerning to me that nobody was like, this is a bad idea, don't do this.
People just want to say what they want to say, and...
God bless the internet, am I right?
Let's just make it short and sweet as possible. If you made it this far, we appreciate you sticking around. What a ride it's been,
it was
honestly.
Terrible, and I hated it, but we made it.
We made it to the end. If you'd like to see more, you can hit that subscribe button down below.
We have a whole playlist of Mormon influencers.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch. Maybe people you've heard of, maybe people you've never heard of. So go check that out. If you'd like to continue to support us even more, you can become a member or a patron. That will gain you access this week to another watch party over on our Discord. We're watching Mormon comedies from the 2000s. Last time we watched The Singles Ward, which I'd never seen, and honestly... I did kind of like it.
It was
Not
good.
gonna lie. It was a good time.
Good.
It was a good time. So if you'd like to join us, you can join any tier, Patreon or YouTube. You get the same benefits, and you can join up over on our Discord, and we'll get cooking. It was a fun time last time. We were looking for a fun time this time. Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, which works out to 6 p.m. Pacific, or 9 p.m. Eastern. I want to say Atlantic. Why didn't they just name it after the oceans if they were going to do it on one of them? Anyway. So, and I'll have the poll up by the time that this comes out, so you can vote on which one we're going to watch next. I think we're going to want to watch The Singles Ward 2, but I will leave it up to the people. That also goes into check out our Discord. That's where we're going to be having the watch party. But there are a lot of other awesome things going on over there. You can find the invite link for that in the description down below. And then finally, our socials. You can find clips over on TikTok, or you can find more casual stuff that we like to post on Instagram. You can find us on both of those at Jordan and McKay. But thank you, everybody. We love you. You're awesome. Being an Olympic medalist doesn't mean that you need to be a mean girl.
And shout out to all the amazing Olympians out there, especially my soccer girls, my beach volleyball gals.
Oh, yeah.
They played hard till the end.
We were loving Hughes and Chang. Such
they really had
great
me going. I love them.
Volleyball to watch. Anyway, we love you, and we will see you next time.